Hello everyone, it's TUI time. I've decided to call it TUI. Terminal UI. TUI, I guess. That's the only way that I can think of how to pronounce it. Alright, before that though, of course, having some issues with YouTube, in which it lets me see my stream manager, but it doesn't let me see the chat because I'm not logged in. Why am I allowed? Quick question. Why am I allowed to manage my stream but not see the chat because I don't have permissions? In what world does that make any sense? I am on YouTube, so I have to be quiet. I have to not say anything mean. I have to control the things that I want to say about YouTube. It is in fact a very nice platform and I love working on it. Yes, I feel fulfilled when I stream on YouTube. YouTube. Stream now. I removed the chat from stream a while ago. But now I can't access the chat not on screen as well, so. Alright, logging in again might have fixed it. It's also incredibly fast. Fast and efficient. Alright, it works again. Just cleaner to remove it that way. I mean, to have it that way. Just keeps the screen a little cleaner, focuses on the code and whatnot. Let's put it that way. Okay, so. Definitely not, because if you say something outrageous, it stays in the VOD. That's not the reason. Outrageous sounds so... Such an interesting word. Alright, so, back to TUIs. Yesterday... By the way, before I get to that, I see that Zed has been improving their Git viewer a little bit. And we have history here, as well as this, which is what I always thought was there. I don't have any changes right now, and kinda don't know what this is supposed to look like, but yeah, I guess we'll see. Seems like they've made some updates. Maybe it works a little bit better, especially with multiple projects, because it can be a little bit buggy. That would be cool. Alright, so yesterday I added text formatting like color and whatnot to my terminal. And I did it with something similar to rich text format, but not really. I just find that better than the standard way of doing it, which is just absolute insanity. I mean, compare this to this. I find that a lot more readable. I don't know, call me crazy. It feels more readable to me. Now, one thing about it is I picked a random color and it's very ugly. So I probably want to fix that a little bit. That's kind of not what I want to focus on today, so it's not a problem. I already did it. And yesterday I left it that I had some boilerplate to finish writing in the terminal to fully support this feature properly. Because whenever a character got redrawn, it lost the color that it was supposed to be, and so it was glitchy. I have to be completely honest, I don't understand why these prints broke, but whenever I print from within the terminal itself, it worked fine. I still haven't figured out exactly what the logic was behind it, but I do believe I have fixed it. So now, oh, that color is much, much better. All right. Not sure why it prints these new lines here that I'm not really expecting to print, but it does properly print all of this stuff with the color that was specified in a hexadecimal format. I kind of want to make it more complex. I would like to allow you to define a color palette for your application, where the my washing machine is being very loud right now. All right. I would like to specify some way, either some standard colors so that you can just do something like color red, similar to like how HTML, for example, has standard colors. It has a lot of colors. So something like that, but ideally, the part that I'm more interested about is letting you define colors. Something like that, which is just an instruction that allows you to define a color palette so that whenever you use red, you're referring to this color right here. You don't have to type it every single time. And instead of calling it red, you can call it something like primary or error color or whatever, and that would make it a lot easier to work with. It doesn't have to be in the print. To be fair, that is true. Just because you do the color printing in the printer itself, in the print function itself. But yeah, doing it here doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Again, I'm not actually doing this today, so it's fine. Don't really care much for it. Hello, Kayal. But that is a good point. Why should it be in the print? There's no reason for that. And I do have some ways of setting up the environment already. So the environment config, I can just create a function to define a color palette with it. Same as you can define a structure definition for structured data, you can define a color palette for printing. And if I standardize it somewhat, like I said, with the primary, secondary colors and whatnot, you could even use it with the structured data. But yeah, that's not really what I want to focus on today. What I do want to focus on today is working with the cursor. Actually, first, one thing that I did do, in order to support the terminal being able to like redraw characters properly, I created a function for it, which is for the console technically, not the terminal, but they're the same thing. I created a render glyph function, which just renders a specific character at a specific location, X and Y. The character that you want, foreground color, which is the character text color, background color, and then this half thing, because when you're redrawing because of a cursor, you're kind of using a little offset. So I just added that, and by the way, it defaults to false. Wait, that doesn't go there, it goes in the header. That is one thing that I do like about C++, is that you can have default values for arguments. I understand why C doesn't have it. To be honest, anything that C doesn't have, I fully understand why it doesn't have it. And I do have to say, a lot of times it can be kind of annoying if you do it wrong, but I do like to have the option to do that. So that's nice of C++ to provide. See, I do sometimes like something that C++ has done. Totally. And okay, with this render glyph function, I should be able to paint in the terminal to create a UI. Because to be fair, when on the regular UI, not UI, a regular TUI uses characters to draw everything. I don't have these characters. I don't really want to add support for these characters for the time being. Instead, I want to just use colors, right? So just paint this cell right here, paint it white, which is going to make a blockier table, but still makes a table, right? Just like, it's hard to show what that would look like, but this stupid ass program does have it. Again, it has these lines inside of it, but if you ignore the lines, the blue part is technically doing what I'm saying. Sets the background to blue, but then on top of that, it renders a glyph inside of it. So with render glyph, it should be possible. Not a glyph, just renders a background, and then it renders a character inside of it. That's what I mean. Why do most people hate C++? Hold on, I got you. Watch this. Watch that video and you'll understand. It's 2 hours, but it's worth it. It's just, it's not really C++. It's C minus minus. It's not really an improvement on C. It's kind of shitty. I saw somebody say, this sounds controversial, but not even... I didn't immediately disagree or think this was a stupid take. Although I'm not sure if I agree with it. I haven't thought about it enough to know if I agree with it. Honestly, I don't care about it enough to know if I agree with it. But I saw somebody on Twitter say that Objective-C is the true C with classes, which is what C++ claims to be. I don't know about that. Like, Objective-C is ugly. It's objectively ugly. And one of my first programming languages too.
Omicron.
I actually am not sure if I saw the same person say that Swift is bad and Objective-C is better. So maybe I disagree with that. I also saw somebody say that, but that was maybe a different person. I don't remember who said that about Objective-C being the real C with classes. But it kind of is. Why isn't Spanish Wikipedia? No wonder it has no information. It's very ugly to look at, but I don't... Whoops, didn't mean to click on that. It's very ugly to look at, but I don't necessarily disagree with it being Objective-C with classes, because it just implements it in a much more straightforward way than whatever the fuck C++ is doing. Also, C++ has just been growing in the same way that a tumor grows. Just keeps adding shit without really having any kind of like cohesion to it. And the syntax just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, even the one that I use is just very basic. I do use it as C with classes, but even then it's like there's a couple of very weird things happening sometimes. On top of the fact that it has the audacity, the absolute fucking audacity, to think that it can tell you how to write proper code. Like, for example, I have to initialize this struct by initializing every single field of it. You would think, oh, just the ones that I say have the value that I say, and the ones that I don't have a 0 value, right? Nope, you have to initialize every single one of them. And you have to do it in the right order. If you do this, that's wrong. That's an error. Not a warning, that's an error. This will not compile. Also, this will not compile. Like, look at your syntax and tell me who gave you the right to decide how I write my code. And again, not even the syntax that I have here, just like modern syntax for C++. Still, who gave you the right? How do you have the audacity to do this? I haven't even kept up with C++. I don't even know what C++ 26 looks like. That's a lot of red. It has reflection, that's nice of it. I feel like their syntax highlighter here does not look as good as I want it to look. So let me just use Zeds real quick. C++ and Rust are really competing for worst syntax. And I cannot tell you who's winning. I think it's a tie. I think... can we just give them 2 gold medals? I think they both deserve a gold medal for worst syntax. What the shit? Okay, actually this is worse than anything I've ever seen on Rust. The problem is that it's the same thing I've seen on Rust, just on every step of the way. Like, this? I would not be surprised if I saw this kind of syntax in Rust. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw this kind of syntax in Rust. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw this in Rust. But here I'm seeing them all together. So I just don't know if, like... Can Rust do worse? I kinda want to give them both an award for worst syntax ever. Although, for actual code that I've looked at, this monstrosity here takes the cake. Rust is a little bit better. I don't know that... I've seen some shit with Rust syntax as well. And the thing is that in C++, this kind of syntax is completely optional. So you can have C++ code that looks just like C. Because literally most of my C++ code started out as C and then turned into C++ when I realized classes would be better for this case. I now regret that decision in most of those cases. But yeah. In Rust, though, it has a lot of very weird syntax, and it is a required syntax. I still have my old... Like, even the most basic Rust examples tend to have weird syntax. Such as this. Or this. It's not println, it's println! Because it's a macro. I've said all I needed to say about Rust. I'm at peace with Rust now. Either way, I don't like either language, but the syntax isn't even the main reason. Although it is kind of ugly. And it is the most obviously The most visible reason why I don't like them. He's so at peace, he doesn't even know what Rust is. Oh. Afternoon. Alright. So. Still, there is a 2-hour video on why C++ is the worst language, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, which means in that aspect, I would very much give the gold medal to it over Rust. At least Rust tries to do something good. I think it does do something good with memory. I think the syntax is not great. Similar syntax in Rust, probably with a custom proc macro. Do you mean to the monstrosity that I just closed from C++? Or the little Rust example? It's here again. Oh my god, it got worse. Oh my god, it actually gets worse. Here is a decent sketch. I would like you to reconsider the meaning of the word decent. And I'm not insulting the quality of your work, whoever wrote this blog post. I'm not insulting you or the quality of your work. I'm insulting the language, to which I assume you had no control over. But it just keeps getting worse. It's so ugly. Yeah, I just use C and I'm mostly fine with it. Oh, the syntax is in Rust is not that bad. It can get pretty bad though. Like it has a lot of very small examples. I don't think I've ever seen Rust code that gets to that level, but it has a lot of very small things that is just like, was that really necessary? Are you just being extra safe by making everything so explicit? It just feels like, I don't know, unnecessarily annotated syntax. Whereas, for example, I find a lot of C syntax to be more explicit. I find Rust syntax to be too explicit. Like, for example, you wouldn't really care if you're accessing a pointer like this or this, but it does tell you what you're doing with memory. Even that sometimes feels excessive, but it's okay. But with Rust, I feel like every single thing you do has to be annotated with some special syntax for it, and that does eventually get a little bit unclean. Zig does have very explicit syntax as well, but I feel like it kind of hides it to a certain extent by using more it still has some weird syntax, like here. Like, genuinely, what is going on here? But, for example, stuff like this, it's being very explicit about how to handle a division, but because it's doing it with this type of annotation, instead of having a different symbol for every single thing that you do, it feels a little bit cleaner because of that. Even then, there's some things in the syntax that I find really weird. Like, I have no idea what this means. Exclamation point void. Why don't you use the Spanish exclamation point, the upside down one? Builds anticipation, actually. Nobody uses it in Spain, by the way. So I want to make that clear. Possibly the easiest way to tell in writing when somebody is not a native Spanish speaker is if they use those. Either that, or they're a cop, or an HR person. Those are the possibilities. Nim file, gotcha. Don't have syntax highlighting for it. Case off. Well, what are you going on about case off? That is so weird. That's such a weird syntax. I think I wrote a switch statement in all of these, if I'm not mistaken. All the ones that supported it. See, switch, value, arrow, fine. Rust does the same thing, I believe. Match. It has to be a little weird. It has to be a little special. Rust has to be special, that's fine. C, switch case. Switch is maybe not the most understandable value. Like, the most understandable word for it. I feel like we mostly understand it because we know what a switch is. But like, switch on the value of this. Depending on the value, you go into one of these different cases. And then case this, case this, case this, case this. Some get rid of the case word. Some use a different word and switch, like Rust with match. Match might even be a better word than switch. Hey, Ninja. Maybe. I'm not sure how I feel about it. And it gets rid of the case. Because again, you're matching the value of character, right? If it's this one, then going... Yeah, actually, I like match more than switch. Not gonna lie. Alright, Rust. You being special has paid off. You having to be different, paid off. I actually like switch. I like match. Also, another thing that happens with Zig is that it breaks every 2 minutes. Like, you update the version, you have to rewrite your entire code because they changed the syntax completely. I'm exaggerating a bit, but I do hear that happens a lot. And even when I wrote this code and I was looking at the documentation was constantly very out of date, even though it was the official documentation on the official website. I still think that the language with the best syntax is Swift, and I have not found a single one that has better syntax. Rust has a good idea when it comes to memory safety. Zig has good ideas when it comes to being explicit, which is, by the way, the point of Zig, since that just got asked. Some of these, like, functional programming languages have good... What are you going on about with ZLS? Some of these have very weird syntax, but good ideas when it comes to functional programming. Odin is an interesting language, but I still think the best syntax is here. It's explicit enough, it's elegant enough, and it's versatile enough that it also allows you to do functional, declarative, imperative programming. Very similar to C, very similar to pretty much everything. The thing is that it can be kind of slow, especially when it relies so much on closures, and those are and it's type safe and memory safe as well, so it requires a lot of extra checking. It can be so slow. And one thing that really annoyed me about Swift is that you would be working with closures inside of closures inside of closures inside of closures, and you would have a syntax error, and it would actually time out. Like, the compilation, the type checking would time out, which means there was an error. But that means that you stayed there for like a really long time before you realize there was an error, and then it wouldn't really tell you what the error is because it didn't really find it. It timed out. So ideally they'll work on that soon, but syntax-wise I like it. It's just that it has trade-offs because of the way that it does the syntax. Also, it inherits from Objective-C, which inherits from C. Now, Jules, I do remember this language made no sense whatsoever. It doesn't have switch statements. It doesn't have switch statements. It has timeouts because it relies so much on closures. Like, if you look at SwiftUI, Do we have an example on Wikipedia? Yeah, okay, this is not a whole lot. Okay, so this here is a property of a class called app. The property is called body, and it returns some scene, which is kind of a way of saying something that is of the type scene, or adheres to a protocol called scene, and protocols are kind of like interfaces. But it doesn't specify what it is, because right now it's a window group, but it could also be something else. But it always has to be the same return type. Now, window group is a class which in its initializer has a closure that contains the content of the window group, and inside of that there is a content view which itself is a class. And if you make that even more complex, which is just a very simple example, but you already have a closure here, you could have another closure here, and then like any kind of SwiftUI code that you write like this is going to have a closure inside of another one, inside of another one, and all of those require type checking because they're not being explicit about their type, especially with the sum thing that I just mentioned. So it can time out because it is, well, yeah. So syntax wise I like Swift, but then when it comes to like this kind of thing, it's like there is a trade-off to the syntax. The syntax is great, the implementation could use a little work. I don't know if it's still the same way. I haven't done anything particularly complex with SwiftUI in a really long time, in like a year or so, so I'm not sure. But that is how it used to be. Also, hello Peter and Loliet. Alright. Let's render to a terminal. Not sure why I did that. Okay. So, to render to a terminal, I want to just be able to say, well, before I get to that, I want to look at how terminal applications render their UI. And I would love to find just the rendering code, but let me see, maybe a write-up would be a good place to see that. Although I'm pretty sure I read the word React here, so what the fuck are you going on about? Actually, someone that highlights the problem with C might show me just what it looks like to do this. Alright. None of this is about a terminal UI. All of this is about curl. Wait, this is about a terminal UI. Although there's something called render menu from JSON. I'm a little bit scared. I just want to see your rendering code, my dude. That didn't really help. Although, okay, take React for example. Almost every page has a small built-in tutorial as well as a font and font size that's completely optimized for reading. Okay, so you're not saying I used React in the terminal, thank God, which is what I thought it said. And Curses is doing the render. Yeah, I felt that way. I kind of want to look at like raw terminal rendering. Not sure how to Google it. This is where I wish that AI was actually useful. It would be so cool to just say, hey, give me an example of this shit, and then it gives me something that it actually takes from a source, instead of just eating up the entire internet and then regurgitating it to you in sometimes hallucinated ways. So it would be great to see some actual code. Made a little overview of a few terminal apps. Well, I actually want the overview. Although they're both linking to the same place, so I'm not sure what this saying here was saving everybody a click. When it doesn't look like this one was edited to add this after it, but I'm not sure how Reddit works anymore. Alright. Again, I just want to see how they're doing the actual rendering without having to delve into the code. If you search using Brave Search, it tells you if you can't find an answer with a source. Yeah, just what I'm saying is that it should work more as like a classifier for information, like a search engine, than just let me give you the answer so that you don't have to get it from an actual source type of thing. I just find navigating like code bases really difficult when I don't know them because everyone has their own little structure and it's... Alright, let me see. 2 week... Let's look at carousel. That seems like a completely complicated one. Alright, here we go. But this is probably not doing the actual rendering. It's probably giving it to somebody else to do. Okay, we have some ANSI stuff going on here. Not sure where you initialized that one. I'm also reading it in Go, which I don't know how that works. Where is the ANSI thing that I saw before coming from? That's what I actually want. Well, I could just search for it. I'm not sure when the... Okay, here. Probably. Which is a different code base. Page not found. Woohoo! Wait, hold on. To be fair. Human readable ANSI sequences. Yeah, that's very readable. Look at that. Oh, it's parsing them. Okay, I understand what it's doing. See why I don't want ANSI sequences and instead I did a different rich text format type? Because what the fuck was that? I just wanna look at 2-week code. I just wanna see how it's done without a library, so I need to see how a library does it. But it's never that easy. Alright, source. Widget. Okay, this is Python, so that's very interesting. It might be more readable. Let's see. You got where's any like UI types? Widgets probably? Yeah, All right. CSS. Okay. Oh, it's a terminal UI for both Docker and Docker Compose, written in Go using the Go GUI library. Go console user interface. Wait, this entire time, I'm such an idiot. Oh my god. I wasn't looking at what the projects actually were. These are not UI libraries. They're just apps that use a UI library. No wonder I couldn't find any rendering code. Maybe I should look at what I'm actually and what I'm actually clicking on. Alright. So my bad for this in the first code base. I didn't really do that, but still. My bad. Alright. The actual rendering code then came from here. Although I'm still not sure where the rendering was coming from, because the only ANSI code base that I found on the other thing was completely different. Okay, we have examples. Alright, so give me a layout or widgets, maybe even. I want something relatively complex. Alright, so here it is. This is probably the import that they were using for that. Well, no, it's a different code base, never mind. It's just the same language. Alright, main, here we go. Alright, so you create a Go GUI with a new GUI. A Go GUI with a new GUI. Well, a new GUI with Go GUI would be more accurate. Then you can paniclin, defer close. Alright, you do some setup. You create a help widget. I'm just now realizing the word new is part of this thing. Is the class called new help widget? The class or the function or whatever you're using here? Is the initializer called that? Or do you just append the word new to it? But like that? Instead of the way that, for example, C++ does it? What is going on? What is going on with this name? Can you... It's a function called new help widget. Okay, that's what's going on with it. It creates a help widget. It's just a function they called new help widget. Okay. So help widget, it claims it comes from this file. That's not accurate. I'm going to search for the symbol. Let's see if GitHub works. Okay, so the help widget actually comes from here. It's literally just a struct. Oh, it was literally right above it too. I want to see how you do the actual rendering then. Okay, so this is the main again. This is where you create all the widgets. And then I don't see you going to any kind of loop, rendering loop or anything like that. Probably instead of set manager. I'm not sure. Yeah, let's start looking directly at the code.
Are you terminally addicted to developing your terminal? That was a bad joke.
As a matter of fact, I hate the terminal, but I'm not hating developing as much as I thought I would, because I genuinely hate working with terminals, but I'm enjoying this. Weird. Having mixed feelings right now. It doesn't feel good. It feels weird. It's like my identity is changing. Alright, main loop. We got a main loop. Input mode. We have a flush. This is the flush. Draw frame edges. Alright, show me that. Show me that. That's here. Alright, rune H, rune V. That's interesting, okay. There they are. And then you are literally just doing set rune for the location to the horizontal or vertical one. And then foreground color, background color, very similar to what I'm doing. Very similar to the set glyph thing that I was doing before. Alright, that's kind of what I wanted. And it isn't handled by... Hold on, what I need to see is... How are you actually talking to the terminal? You're using a term box set cell. God, the average code base has so much, like, passing shit around before you actually get to doing it. It's crazy. Alright, seems like it's here. Or not. Because all these are calls. I want you to find the symbol. Where is it actually being... Oh my god, where is it actually being... Is there something here called term box? No. Where's term box defined? GitHub. Thank you. Termbox.go. So it comes from this code base. The actual thing I'm looking for is a separate library. So termbox. NSF termbox. Okay, so this time the URL would have been correct. This library is no longer maintained. Alright, no problem. Just looking at your code real quick. Oh, this is not in Go. Alright, that works for me. Actually, it's C, so that works. Set cell. So it's not called the same. Alright, what symbols do we have? We have getters, send char. Alright, so that's kind of... Yeah, there seem to be multiple versions of this. That was Termbox Go, to be fair. This is Termbox. But it's the same creator that they were referencing in their library, so... Alright, so here you're just sending characters. Then you're sending a clear. Okay. And you're actually just sending character. Oh, sending attribute. Okay, this might be interesting. Kind of what I'm looking for, most likely. God damn it, I got to the forward declaration. This is it. Right now I'm working on the terminal a little bit. I'm looking at how regular terminals do complex 2E rendering. Alright, so it is just done through the byte buffer, which I'm pretty sure is essentially just printing. I just kind of want to see your syntax for send attribute, foreground and background color, I'm assuming? That's what it stands for? Okay, so what is this funcs? Can I see the definition of these? Here. Finally. Hmm. Alright, so what is this called? Collect terminal info. Okay, kind of what I'm going for. Yeah, sure. Keys and functions and... Alright. So, all right. I kind of understand what's going on here, but I would like to see it without any libraries and wrappers around, so I can wrap my hand around what it actually looks like. So I need to look at it unwrapped, ironically, to wrap my head around it. I guess, let me put it this way. I have a pure C code base, and I want to render a ref term by Casey Morituri, all right? I want to tell the terminal, render a character in this location. How would I do that? I'm assuming, since we have... Where's the Wikipedia page for escape sequences? Since we do have a cursor control, I can set the cursor position to row n, column m, right? I'm writing a terminal. I'm just saying, like, I want to see how it's done in an existing type of terminal, even though I'm not copying them because I don't like ANSI escape sequences for formatting and this type of stuff. I want to copy the behavior, I just don't want to copy the syntax. So I'm kind of looking at how they do it. Okay, so this is it, right? I would set the cursor position, although I can also just do cursor up, cursor down, cursor forward, cursor back, next line, previous line, horizontal, absolute. Cursor position, erase and display in line. Okay, so I actually have this behavior already. Okay. So I would set the cursor position. Which again, do I want to do this through an escape sequence like that? And then I could do... I would need to know the size of the terminal, which I will need to probably request to the terminal. But for the time being, we're just gonna hard code it. I know that there is a way to do like terminal info. I just don't. Well, again, I'm building my own thing, so not really. And the thing is, I can just do this. And technically render a line of 10 characters on position 0, 0. Now, the thing is that this obviously doesn't work yet, but it should render a crash. It crashed. Did it crash because I added a fake format sequence that doesn't actually exist? Is it worth it to move from VS Code to Z? Yes. It still crashed. That's... Well, that's very reassuring that print is crashing. Good to know. Love to see it. Okay. First off, I'm definitely going to need a put, which I don't have right now. Yeah, VS Code is a browser and slow as hell. Z has a few places where it's a little bit buggier and a little bit slower, but it's getting better every time. So, actually, I mentioned earlier there were some changes to the this thing here, the Git viewer, but I didn't have any changes. Now that I do, view diff just opens this thing, which also happens if I open this, and also shows history. That's pretty much it. They added this button, but again, you can just click on this, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it has like VS Code presets. It also has like Vim mode. And AI is opt out, which, why the fuck? But yeah, you just toggle a button and all AI goes away. And it is native, yeah. The only thing where it was a little bit, it was really slow at first whenever it interacted with like the file system like this. Now it's still slow. Like that wasn't super snappy, but it was way faster than it used to be. Um, I I do want to know why the hell this is crashing, by the way. Like you should not be crashing on me. Alright, this doesn't crash. What happens if I print just once? Like, what's happening there? Okay. Is it because I'm printing too much and scrolling? Is that the problem? I feel like that's the problem. Yeah, that's... Oh, no, it's still happening. It crashes in graphics. That may not be accurate. Shell is accurate, though. Would love to know what's happening here. Alright, I guess we're debugging this. Again, system halted. But it isn't... That's a weird crash. It doesn't even panic. I mean, it panics, but it doesn't show a panic. It's a really bad crash. Alright, but I think the only accurate part of this is shell.c. So shell.c, line 17, is calling the command input, right, which is where we're actually executing. I think that line numbers are accurate, so it's on line 105 of this one, which is calling the console output. The console output is tied to the terminal. And even though the file names are wrong, I can kind of trace it back because I know the code base. Terminal is here. Line 14 of this takes us to put char, which is in the console. Line 134 is a flush. Well, that's not great. That then goes to line 402. Although, pretty sure flush is a function of this, isn't it? It is. But it's a virtual function, so it goes back to the terminal. Which calls this function Wait, was that line 402? Yes, it was. Okay. And then it says signals.h, line 691. That's so not accurate. Commit draw context is actually a syscall. So now we've gotten into the $190 here. What is happening? Why is the graphics crashing? That is very weird. I'd be very surprised if that's what's actually happening. But it says graphics. We're on Vert right now. This one. Lines 36 and 38. Okay, so I traced it back to nothing, pretty much. Because it seems like the error probably traces back to the render glyph, this function. This function here, okay. So when you're drawing a new line, you're flushing, that's somehow corrupting the data, perhaps? That's very confusing. Alright, so it has nothing to do with scrolling, which is what I thought it was. I thought when you scroll, you're probably doing something wrong here and you're rendering wrong. But no, I'm assuming the problem is that the cursor is somehow out of bounds now? For whatever reason? Oh god, I wonder what Microsoft is doing now. Let me see. Alright. Do they have examples? It is better than the Wikipedia page, I guess. Oh my god! Yeah, in case you were wondering why I don't want to use escape sequences, because this is just so unreadable. I get to speak in code. That just looked... I don't know, it jump scared me until I read most of this is actually just text. But yeah, this part is just horrifying. What the fuck? Genuinely, what the hell is that? Anyway, I'm having a bug right now, so... Alright, so it's happening when we're printing a new line, because, can I assume that new line is increasing the cursor, and if the cursor is bigger than rows minus 1, then scroll. We must be scrolling, I assume. There's no scrolling happening whatsoever. Which makes sense. I mean, we still have all of this space. It's not like 10 lines were gonna cause a scroll. That is just weird. What is only supported on cross-platform? Don't think that's very... I didn't even notice the L at the beginning of the string. Let me not even get into that. I actually don't know how to do this stuff in Windows. I don't know how to code in Windows, because like, why would I bother? They don't even bother. They use React. So Alright, let me try something. First question I gotta ask myself is the problem related to the code that I wrote yesterday? Right, so this one. It is. Okay, that explains a little bit, I guess. That explains a lot, actually. That is exactly the problem. Clang, I need you to get your shit together because I am not in the mood. I moved the code and now it opened a completely empty file because it couldn't find it. It still couldn't find it correctly, but whatever. Anyway, something here is causing the crash. Alright, another question I gotta ask myself is if instead of using this, I use this character, will it still happen? Hello, C42. Yes, the crash still happens, so it has nothing to do with this character. It's just the fact that probably by printing this stuff, I am doing something to the formatter that is messing it up. I just don't understand what that could possibly be. Okay, it has nothing to do with the actual input. It's just that we shouldn't be going into this case. We shouldn't be going into this case. No, we are. We are going into this case eventually. Oh, wait. There's another thing I want to check. Alright, so right now it crashes, right? Yes. Where's the draw cursor? Because this function was causing a lot of issues yesterday. And no, surprisingly no, that's not the one that's causing the issues. And I don't believe it's going to be redraw either. Nor refresh, because neither of those is actually doing anything. Nor scroll, because that one's not being called, but just in case. Just want to make sure that it's an actual rendering issue. Yep, okay. Also, the first print works, but the second one breaks. It prints up to... No, wait, that is not the full value of that. No, it is the full value of that. Yeah. So when it gets to the new line, after printing this stuff, it goes to a new line and it goes crazy. But only if I print something before it. But not here. Because, like... I mean, what happens if I just do this? Will it also happen? Yeah. But if I don't do that, then it works. Okay, so still gonna get rid of that code because that's kind of unnecessary. Though I wonder if that was what was causing it. That would have been funny. Also get rid of this. All right. Again, would be really funny if the issue was gone. But nope, obviously not. Okay, so something about these prints is messing up the formatting. Because if I return false without doing any formatting, I just don't do anything with it, it works fine. As expected. And just to be clear that it isn't like a memory issue, also same thing here. It is a memory issue, okay. Well, I guess that explains a lot. This makes no sense to me. Alright, I wanted to kind of refactor this anyway, because this stuff should not be inside of here at all. This is the actual like state machine that handles the formatting. No, this is the actual like format values that the terminal takes as to render the text and whatnot, or to wipe the screen, because it can also do that. Whereas this is supposed to be the state machine that it uses for that. I wanted to move it out of there, but because I'm initializing it here. Let me simplify this a little bit just for testing though. If there is no state, just initialize it as this thing. And just use it as such and do absolutely nothing with it. Because we're doing nothing with it. None of this code is actually being called. And it crashes. This is a memory issue. This is literally the only thing that's happening is I'm initializing this thing. Alright. So how about when I initialize the terminal, here, I tell the terminal to create this thing. I do it from the terminal itself. The for loop. I mean, that's... I kind of replaced it with this. It still happens. It's fine. It's not about the for loop itself. Just that the... It's not in the terminal, it's in the console. Current format. State is going to be initialized to this thing, except you don't know what this is, so can I just give it to you manually? What is the size of this thing? $32. Alright, so I'm just gonna hard code it to 32. That works fine. And then what if I initialize it externally? And I use it. This is a memory issue, but why Terry Davis jump scare? This works fine. Okay, so when I was initializing that variable from within here, it didn't work for some reason. But when I'm initializing it from out here, it works. Even though I'm initializing it from out here without even knowing what type is gonna go inside of it, because the type is private to this file. So it doesn't even know. That is so weird. Okay. Well, like I said, I was still gonna decouple a few things, so project has been going for about a year. Yeah, I think. I mean, can I do it like that? This is gonna be so weird if it starts crashing again. But anyway, you include the embedded format.h. And I guess you can just include, instead of that, the tcf.h. Alright, so the formatter. If formatter state or, then just return 0. Otherwise, you're going to set your state type to what did this used to be? TCF. And then you're going to allocate it, just like that. Alright, so console, well, terminal. Well, no, I want the console to do this initialization, actually. Current format dot That's it, actually. I just want that. Init TCF using the current formatter. And to do that, you need to know what a TCF is. So that goes into embedded format TCF. All right, so now we're initializing it from here. Or not. Is that not how you do that? Apparently not. What is happening to my double cursors? There. I'm messing this up so badly. There. It would have been faster for me to write this twice, actually, than to do that whole thing. Crash. But again, if I do this, oh, it also crashes. Okay. Well, that's new. But if I do it from here, suddenly it's okay. Am I doing something weird here that... It's a weird memory issue happening right now. And frankly, I'll fix it when I get to it. So right now, that means that the console that shows up when you initialize the system will not have any formatting to it. But I believe this works. I hope, because I want to move on from this weird-ass crash. Well, no. Wait, it already has a value. No, state is set to 0 and state type is set to 0. What? Oh, I'm not actually setting the value, I'm returning it. I'm just being stupid here. Yeah, 'cause it's supposed to be a void function. Oh boy. Alright. I don't know what just happened. Not entirely sure. But I fixed a crash and we can actually get to what I've been wanting to do. Alright, so we can bring this back. And I do wonder what will happen with a control sequence that isn't actually recognized. Will that crash? Maybe. That's what I thought was crashing initially. No, that works just fine. Alright. Now it prints this, and I want you to print it like this. I'll pet the dog when he wakes up. Alright, so there we have it. Everything's working fine. And I do wonder, will scroll work properly? It's probably not a can of worms that I should be opening right now. Not quite. Wait. Hold on. I'm being a little stupid here. I commented out half the code for the for the console. No wonder it doesn't work. That worked surprisingly well considering it was unable to handle most things, but yeah. Okay, that works fine. Can you create a running thread that randomly does a jump scare in the terminal? Maybe there already is one. I just haven't had the system open long enough for you to see it. You'd have to try it yourself. You'll never know until then. So, alright, let's get to what I actually wanted to do. Hour and 30 minutes into the stream. Lovely, love to see it. Alright, two things I need to do in order to be able to kind of start rendering. I need to create an actual cursor thingy here. Well, there's just going to be several things. First, I need to know the size of the terminal, so I need to be able to tell the application that. Then, I need to be able to tell it to print without a new line at the end. So that one's going to be relatively easy. I just have to create the function. Then, I have to tell it to move the cursor. So I'm going to have that type of functionality. And I guess we'll see what else. Let's begin with the printing thing. This is the print function, and it adds the new line by itself. But it internally calls current shell print, whereas you can instead call current shell put or shell put. That function should be able to print without a new line. All right, so just gonna copy you and you, and then you. All right, so now we should have a put function. Honestly, it won't actually print to the syscall for print, which frankly is probably a syscall that I need to get rid of eventually, but it will do. It also needs to do this. So I can make it fully accurate. Wait, what? No. What is that indentation? No. All right, so if we don't have cross-platform, I'm just gonna do this. If we do have cross-platform, I'm gonna rely on libc libc's printf to do this for me, because this is how printf works. So that's going to be particularly convenient to be able to do that. All right, back to you. Instead of print, you put. And I am technically now officially inverting the behavior of libc's print and put, because put puts a new line, print does not. All right, but there we have it. Except it obviously doesn't put a new line at the end. So we'll have to do that. This is exactly why I made my print automatically put a new line at the end. Guess who joined the other side? I'm not sure if you're telling me that you are now evil. You're doing React, or you're coming out. All right, so that should work. Oh, better than. You're from Mac. Nice. Don't tell me you did that so you can do an app for your project, although that would be pretty cool. I can definitely help you with Swift. So that is my area of expertise besides operating systems. All right, so we can render a straight line. An hour and 40 minutes. And we can render a straight line. Woo! Wow. I feel so proud of myself. Holy shit. I can render a straight line. Oh boy. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just fucking amazing? I deserve a treat for this. A horizontal straight line. Yep. Alright, and because we can't even get the size of the terminal, we're rendering a straight line at a certain amount of characters, which is, by the way, not a continuous straight line, because of the way that the dash works. It's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. Alright, I don't have any treats, unfortunately. Neither for dogs nor humans. Best I can do is an almond. I don't think dogs can eat almonds, so it's just for me. Alright. However, if I want to render this properly... No, dogs should not eat almonds. Yeah, they're usually not allowed to eat any kind of nuts like that. Chocolate, grapes, onion, garlic, none of that stuff. They're not toxic? I think they are toxic for dogs. Okay, so this says no. The short answer for PetMD is yes. Reddit says no. Can we agree? I'm not gonna give him an almond. The American Kennel Club says no. Most people are saying no. Although most of them are saying they're not actually toxic to dogs like other nut varieties. I do know about that. They can't eat other types of nuts. I think peanuts, pretty much they can eat. But even then, if they're salty, you have to be careful. Plain, unsalted, dry roasted, or raw peanuts are safe for dogs in small quantities. Yep. They're high in fat, so. Peanuts are not a nut. Well, I'm sorry for for not realizing that. I think you can see why I would be confused. They're legume. How do you pronounce that word in English? Legumes? Legumes? Like legumes? It's the TUI thing all over again.
Legumes. Legumes. Legumes.
Legumes.
Legumes.
Legumes. Very good. That's how it's pronounced. If you ever eat uncooked beans, it has the same texture as a peanut. I think the only I should have some, but they're like canned. And the only like open ones that I have are lentils, and I'm not really interested in eating that right now. Otherwise, I would do the test. Although, yeah, now I think about it, kind of tracks, kind of makes sense. All right. So, back to this. Let me introduce the cursor movement behavior, in which, to do that, these cursor X and cursor Y values are going to move from the terminal, well, from the console to the formatter. Alright, so it's going to be a bunch of boilerplate I have to fix. Not nearly as much based on this. The OS is called Redacted OS. So I couldn't come up with a better name. I'm doing good, Stony. How are you? Now that you've officially switched to the better side of computing, the actual Windows alternative, the real successor to Unix, the absolute Chad that is Mac. Pretty sure I could have just like searched and replaced, but who cares? Oh no. I thought it was there's only a few errors. It turns out that Clang actually has a limit in how many errors it can show you, so that's why it was only showing me a few errors. Also, I could just like at least copy this so I don't have to type it out every time. It's kind of dumb. Clang has a maximum number of errors because it can be, you can write really shitty code, and that's not its problem. And frankly, this is maybe one of the few things that makes me not want to yell at Clang, although it's still annoying. Alright, so that's it in console, but a quick thing, there's probably some in terminal as well. Yep. Shroop, shroop. Doop, 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 doop. Doop, doop. Okay, these are not nearly as much. It didn't even max out Clang. Pathetic. Though you're still complaining about your initializer. C++ would probably not be nearly as bad. if it didn't have this shit, and if I also didn't divide things into header and implementation files like C does. You have to manually initialize every variable, and you be sure to do it in the right order, otherwise you will... This is the right order? That's actually not correct. I did it wrong. Cursor is supposed to go like here. Oh, this is a warning, not an error. But I'm pretty sure it will crash. Oh, that's because I have W error. So that one's on me. No, not crash, it would not compile. Alright. So everything works exactly as before. But now I have control of the cursor inside of the formatting code, which means I can introduce a new command, cursor, which sets the cursor. Then I'm going to introduce some new ones for also like moving the cursor forward, backwards, up, down, all of that stuff. But right now, we're going for cursor movement. Let's call it cursor absolute, because I will need to differentiate between the two. So there's cursor absolute, and there's going to be cursor relative, rel. Right, so we're doing an absolute movement of the cursor. And now, based on the current feature, we have to choose the argument. And for the first time, I'm parsing two arguments. Because it's the structure is cursor 0, 0, right? So I'm supposed to parse two arguments. And to do that, I'm just going to quickly hold a argnum value to know which argument I'm currently looking at. The IDE is Z, and honestly, the IDE's job is really to just write the code. Anything else is just usually an extension, and these extensions kind of work the same, with the added advantage that Z has less possibilities of supply chain attacks that compromise the entirety of GitHub's private repositories. But it is what it is. All right. Right, so since I introduced the argument number thing, when we get to this point, the argument number is going to be 0. We're going to parse the first argument. When we get to this point, the argument number is going to be increased. We're parsing the next argument. And when we get to this point, the argument number is going to be set to 0, reset, even though it doesn't really matter. Right now I'm working on controlling the cursor over the terminal so that we can do a TUI. We did the rat, we did the at, and now we do the TUI. Pure instant, he responds when I say the word rat. You know, he's actually a rat hunting dog. He got fired because he didn't do a good job at it, but yeah. He's a rat hunting dog. Okay, cursor absolute. Alright, so based on the argument number, which we should switch really. That's a nested switch. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. All right. Well, we're going to need to parse the value that we're reading, essentially, by doing this. Except instead of parsing a hexadecimal value, here we expect to just parse an unsigned integer value. Parse int u64. Right, because it can be positive. Actually, I could introduce both behaviors. Could introduce a move cursor thing where we handle both of these cases when we're doing absolute movement and relative movement. And then we parse the value that we're trying to set. Then our formatter cursor x value is going to be, I was gonna try to be clever with some math here about this, but probably better off to just do if we're doing relative, then increase by the value, which can be negative, in which case it will decrease the cursor value. Then otherwise just do it like that. And same thing for the y-axis for the second argument. Onward. If you add 50 arguments, all of those will just modify the y value. And then on top of that, we should also be checking the cursors. Well, bound checking, which I'm not going to bother with right now because I don't really have that. All right. I said I was using unsigned and then I used signed. So, I mean, I said I was going to use signed and then I used unsigned. So I should be signed because it can be negative, technically. All right. So I should be able to set the cursor with that. And doing absolute. So that should be fine. It starts here instead of here, I'm not sure. Oh. There is... Oh. I am sure now. These should be puts. Because they put a new line at the end of this. Okay, there we go. So, yeah. Now it works. Otherwise, this was putting new lines there that weren't supposed to really be there. And that was already moving the cursor after we were already moving the cursor. But anyway, that works. We can move the cursor, and just to test, wait, hold on. Let me also do, separate from this, a move cur 1, 0, which should now make my line even more dotted. Or not. What the hell did that do? So genuinely, what was that? That didn't work. First off, did I call it move cur? If I didn't, I kinda... Yeah. Which sets it to absolute as well. That explains it. I was always moving it back to the same place. Although it still didn't work. And this is just disappearing more and more. Why am I wiping the screen every time? I forgot to remove that line. God damn it. This is just getting worse. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to actually wipe the screen because I am calling wipe before it, but it isn't doing anything. You're supposed to put wipe, which is supposed to wipe the screen. At which point, we're supposed to set the cursor back to 0, which by the way is completely unnecessary because we're already wiping. At which point, we're ready to move the cursor after we put a character in. But that doesn't seem to be working. But this works. So are we okay with just keeping this? Can I do this, for example? Can I start 10 lines in? Okay. So yeah, moving the cursor is not working right now. It's sets to relative, whereas cursor sets to absolute. And now in both of these cases, you're going to do this. When you're doing relative, you're doing plus value. When you're doing relative, you're doing plus value. Otherwise, you're doing assignment. All right, so again, a little surprised it doesn't work, but seems to be doing okay. All right. I can move the cursor, and I can put characters on the screen. I can choose the color of those characters. We are officially twoing. We are definitely officially twoing. We're doing a TUI. Do I need anything else? Background would be nice. Let me see. BG maybe? By the way, I realized I left this as red, which isn't an actual value, so it was rendering as black, and I didn't even notice why that was happening. Alright, your background color is going to be A, B, C, D, E, F. How's that for a background color? Alright, so that won't actually do anything. So I need to introduce that functionality as well. Very similar to color. I kind of forgot actually that I'll need to do a bunch more stuff before I get to that point. Yeah. Background color. So on top of doing color, you also do background. Then one more property that I'm moving away from here is the background color. So I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna have a lot of errors to fix. It's gonna be very fun. Wait, just found this is valid in Rust. Discord app detected. Do you want to open this link in Discord? Why do you think I clicked on a Discord link? That is very ugly code. Should actually be possible to just do this. To be fair, there's languages where you can use emojis. There was like an AI language that had emojis in the file extension. Wasn't it developed by Google? No, it's not emoji code. Maybe it was something with a J. Mojo. It was something with a J. Alright, I was right about that. Uses the fire emoji. And no, designed by Chris Latner. Developer, Modular Inc. Appeared 3 years ago. What an amazing thing to do. Anyway. Alright, there's an ad break. I'll be back in 3 minutes. And sadly, it's going to be a little bit more boilerplate for a little bit, but we'll be able to do background colors, and then I'm actually going to render a TUI. Okay, I'm back. And I just noticed something in this Wikipedia page that I opened because I remembered randomly about the Fire emoji programming language. This article relies excessively on references to primary sources. Which can, at first when I read that sentence alone, I was like, yeah, they're going to the source to get information on it. But then it makes it very clear that this article contains promotional content. Are we shocked about that? Not even a little bit. I've never read the talk page for Wikipedia. I was expecting a lot more argument. It's literally just one guy. Why does this article have these cleanup tags? Advertisement and reliable sources, yep. I have been trying to maintain this article, but it kept drifting more towards a PR focus on what the product will one day do and buzzwords and marketing pushed by the developers, after citing the developers themselves. Very interesting. No way. I can't believe you. An AI company would do something like this? Nah. Don't think there's any more of that left. But I found it interesting that it says that. Provides a borrow check or an influence from Rust. Yeah, I think that's gone. Not seeing anything that's directly like, oh, the language will... Well, okay, it does say that the language will become open source. But it does say it will. It's planned on doing that. And they have committed to open source it in fall 2026. Yeah, this doesn't sound like it still should have those tags, but whatever. Couldn't care less about a emoji programming language. For the love of God. Okay, by the way, this link open for a bit. This is the Microsoft page for console virtual terminal sequences. So if we're doing what I'm doing right now, just in a less elegant way, because it's both ANSI and Microsoft. It's just the worst of both worlds. Oh, I saw something about an anniversary. Following example is intended to be a more robust example of code using a variety of escape sequences to manipulate the buffer with an emphasis on features added in the anniversary update for Windows 10. This is so readable. Isn't it? Such readable code. Alright. Although, I do have to say, even though it's completely unreadable, to the point of being nonsensical, printing a vertical border seems easy enough to do. First off, you enter line drawing mode, which is a thing that I should probably want to support, yes. Bright yellow on bright blue. What a beautiful combination of colors. In line drawing mode, X78 U2502 vertical bar. Then restore the previous color and exit line drawing mode. Okay, so I was wondering about this because technically my formatting language allows nesting. You could theoretically nest stuff like this. But when you exit AC, okay, so this actually probably would work, except I haven't added the background feature yet. But it probably could work. The problem with it being that if you're currently inside of a color tag, and then you open another color tag, Like, this should be the first color. This should be the second color. And this should be the first color again. That's how I expect it to work, right? If I do this. That's how it should work. This color should override this section, but then go back to this color for this entire section. That's not how it works. Instead, this part will be reset back to the default color, which is white. Okay, I can't actually run it because I just removed references to default color. Just gonna bring those back real quick just to... Alright, can I reset what I did? What are you complaining about? Default text color does not match the declaration. Oh my fuck. There. So annoying. Oh, they're not in the right order. Only a compiler could take care of that for me. Alright, yeah. So, it's broken again. It's broken again. Okay, it's broken. This thing that keeps happening, where I leave the code working, and then I leave for a bit, and I come back to it, and it is broken, needs to stop happening right fucking now. It needs to end. It needs to no longer continue. It needs to cease to exist. I am tired of it. If I finish working on something, and then I leave and then I come back to it, it should work like it was when I left it. What just happened? What could possibly have happened to lead to this breaking again? I'm tired. I'm tired of fixing the same bugs over and over again. Please. Still though, this highlights the issue that I was saying. This thing that says first should be the same color as this. That's not happening. So I need to be able to do color restoring and whatnot. That's the least of my problems right now. It's the least of my problems. It shouldn't even be too difficult to do. I can just do a little stack-based type of thing. Again, this is the last change I made on here. The ad manager just disappeared. Have I made any changes here? Yeah, besides this one. Why did you stop working? Why did you stop working? My God. Okay, now it works again. Alright, so what's really breaking it is the fact that I was using a tag that doesn't really exist, I guess. Sure. Yeah, that's, yeah. Anyway. We are moving on. I'm going to introduce background color. Alright, so by introducing, I'm going to introduce that by just adding a new property called background color, like that. And it is going to be parsed by this thing, and now it should be able to handle it. But it won't actually do anything, I believe. Just please don't break my code again. What is the default background color anyway? It's black by default. Okay. It crashed. I'm gonna go crazy here. I'm getting the weirdest fucking bugs. For like 2 weeks now, I've been getting the weirdest fucking bugs. And there's not really a single place to trace it back to, it's just bad luck. I don't know how else to put it. What is happening? Like, actually. I'm not even using this property that I'm setting here. So what is happening to it? Like, it's literally doing nothing. Why is it crashing? I'm disappointed. What happens if I do this? A property that I know works. Please stop this. I need this to stop. I need this to stop. Wait, I have a theory. Is it classes being weird? Because I changed the size of the underlying struct? No. Damn it. I thought my theory was correct. Okay, so once again, I'm back to not having changed any code and having a crash that wasn't there before. I am genuinely considering giving up programming. I am tired. I don't want to do this anymore. This is very annoying. I am just not having fun anymore doing this shit. I swear to God. Can we please not do this? My God. It is not an alignment issue. It is an actual crash. It feels like it's corrupting memory. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like what's happening. It feels, which is why I cleaned, because I thought, okay, the size of this thing changed, but maybe the terminal hasn't realized, because its parent changed and its child didn't. And then writing to these values is actually overriding it. But first off, I'm not even writing to these values anymore. And second, what the fuck? I also did a clean and nothing happened. Okay. Let me get rid of these values now. Which means getting rid of these values now. Which means getting rid of this. And getting rid of this. It's back to working. For the love of all that is holy, it is back to working. After removing the damn property. This happens a lot in C++ as well, honestly. I have noticed this in a bunch of places. And it's always been C++ now that I think about it. Not to have any kind of witch hunt against C++, except exactly that's what I'm going for, but... Okay, now I'm not modifying this property at all. It just exists. And I'm doing nothing with it. And there's people like shouting outside. Like every 5 seconds, and now it works. Okay, so let me introduce the other property. There's something really fucking weird happening here. Alright, there's your other property. I'm going to introduce it again, but I'm not going to do anything with it. It just exists. And it crashes. But it's not this property, it's the fact that there's both of them, right? There's no other reason why it would be. Yeah. Okay. So it is alignment. Should I preemptively crash out against C++? Should I just make the next 2 hours of the stream watching that damn video that I showed before? Just in case, that was earlier. So.
C++ is absolutely atrocious.
Alright, we're gonna keep that video open. No, obviously not gonna watch it, but we're gonna keep it open because I have a feeling that this is gonna come necessary again. Because what the actual fuck? It's alignment, isn't it? That's what I'm gonna go for. There should be like syntax for aligning stuff. It's attribute aligned, like this. If that's it, hijo de tu puta madre. I am tired of this language. I am tired of this language.
C++ is absolutely atrocious.
That's why I'm complaining about C++. C should take care of that. Does C++ have different alignment rules than C? Because if that's the case, remain diplomatic. Remain diplomatic. I'm gonna hold it together. I'm not gonna complain. I'm just gonna move on. Alright? We're good. Alright, so we can introduce this functionality again, where we can set the value of the cursor, and we can even change it here. And even though it won't do anything, it won't crash. I am genuinely curious as to what's going on outside. There's people shouting all the time. It's doing this shit again. It is frustrating to finish working on a bug, to then only be met with another bug. To then only be met with another one and another one and another one for 3 weeks now. It's been going like this the entire time I've been working on the terminal. Which is why you should not work on it. You should not use terminals. Terminals are useless. Terminals only lead to bugs. That is clearly the message we should be taking from this whole saga. That's it. Alright. Moving on. Is this not a valid sequence, considering I'm actually parsing it now? No, it does this weird shit here where it doesn't render the first half. But only the first half. The rest render fine. Not sure if 100 are gonna fit or if it's gonna go to the next line, but whatever. It only renders a handful. That's... I am tired. I am tired. I'm officially tired. This actually makes it hard to progress because there's so much... so many random bugs happening that like I spend most of the time actually just debugging whatever I'm doing. And it just kind of... You know, it doesn't feel very great. Anyway, best resource to learn C, C++, and ASM is to write them. To just use them. It's the only resource, honestly. Alright, so let's just move on and implement this thing best I can and just ignore the bugs, because otherwise I am genuinely going to end up in a mental hospital by the end of tonight. So let's try to avoid that. And instead, we're going to remove the old existing background color properties from the console. I'm going to get rid of those. And replace them with the current format, current background color. I kind of anticipated this happening, so I mostly took care of it yesterday when I was doing a little bit of cleaning. But there are still a few places where I need to do this. This is what deletes the last character, which should use the default background color. Use the default background color here. Should be default background color for clearing the screen, or... Yeah, whatever. That wasn't even clearing the screen. This is clearing the screen. Alright. And I forgot to change the ones in the terminal. Ooh, that's a lot. Alright. So actually the default background color is set by the theme. And then by definition, the current background color is set to the same thing. And then this check could just be doing here. And that's already taken care of. And How is this being handled right now? I kind of didn't realize that that code was there. Handles. No, current background color. That handles the cursor blinking. I kind of didn't notice any issues with that. To be fair, because the cursor blinks. Ah, I haven't moved the cursor over anything. I am getting genuinely frustrated here. Because what is happening? Actually, what is happening? Do I need to align everything for the love of God? Do I need to do this? Actually, what is happening? I don't understand. That fixed it.
C++ is absolutely atrocious. C++ is absolutely atrocious.
I'm just gonna contemplate for a second here. What are you doing? What are you doing? I do have to ask myself the question. Can I just put that here? But where the fuck are you? I need...
C++ is absolutely atrocious. C++ is absolutely C++ is absolutely atrocious.
That's all I have to say. He's saying it for me.
C++ is absolutely atrocious.
By the way, this guy, no idea who he is. However, C++ developer and hater. One video. 6 months ago. However, joined 2017. This is a guy that has had his YouTube channel since, well, his YouTube account since 2017. Although he's had the channel since 2017, I guess. I'm not sure how you calculate that, because you can have a YouTube account without having a channel. I'm not sure if this is when he created the account or when he created the channel. You can also have a Google account without having a YouTube account. I don't know. But anyway, posted this video, 600,000 views, one video, done. He said what he needed to be said. Could have had more videos before. That's true. But I do know for a fact that he hasn't had any videos since this one. Also, there is a way of knowing that technically. Yeah, 679,000 views, which is slightly lower than the number of views on this. So great job on that one with the rounding. You're doing great. So that means if they had other videos before, they didn't have more than even 1,000 views. Because if it had more than 1,000 views, it would round up to 80. So, yeah.
C++ is absolutely atrocious.
It doesn't count deleted. I think it does. Not sure, but I think it does. Well, that's great, buddy. I don't know what to say. Alright, there is a little visual glitch happening there, but at least it works. I think. A little reluctant. Will this work? This bug is on me, I believe. It's probably a bug with the formatter. Yeah, this one's on me. Also, tell me that the syntax isn't way better than ANSI escape sequences. Come on, people. I would love to genuinely understand what's happening, because, by the way that I wanted to do this is like this. But like half of them are disappearing, so that's not helping. Alright, I kind of do have to debug this, I guess. Just don't feel like it. Alright, what happens if I put it down here? Because I'm genuinely tired of debugging and fixing issues. It's all I've been doing for the past like month. Ooh, that is happening. Also, not responding to the signals that I'm sending it. Not sure if I just disabled those by accident. It might be that I disabled those by accident. I need to look into that. Yep, I disabled signals. No! It's so much debugging happening. Anyway, we're gonna move on. I just want to find a way that this works for a little bit so that I can leave the debugging for later and just write code instead of fixing code. But it doesn't work no matter what I do. Also, I'm telling you to wipe the screen. Why are you not doing that? Oh my god, it just keeps getting worse. It just keeps getting worse. I do want to test something though, because this should technically be possible to do. I open here. I close here. And inside of here, I just put spaces. Surprisingly, that works better. Not good, but better. This thing is very buggy. I'm not gonna lie, I need to really understand what's going on here. And I am really not in the mood for that. Is there anything else I can do instead to move away from this whole very frustrating thing? I think what's happening is probably the cursor. I saw very similar behavior yesterday when I was debugging the cursor, so if I have to blame someone, I'm gonna blame the cursor. That feels very likely. And again, I didn't notice yesterday that there is a redraw input line, which I'm not sure where this is getting called. I kind of didn't notice this code yesterday. Set input line, okay. When you do backspace, you redraw an input line, but that's not what I'm doing. Delete also redraws an input line, okay, that's not a problem. The cursor set visible thing, this. Alright, I'm also going to disable that. Let me see if that fixes all of it, because then it's the cursor, and I guess it kind of makes sense because, again, I didn't even know that this code for the cursor was happening. No, that didn't fully fix it. Besides the redraw input line. Wait. It's interesting that cursor set visible is not letting me write. Yeah, so it's something here. It's something here. I am exhausted. I've done nothing and I'm exhausted. Alright, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take a 5-minute break. And then I don't know, honestly I don't feel like continuing with this, but frustrating as it is. I am working on this thing right now, and this thing is not working, so I guess I have to debug it. Alright. The theme is Synthwave 84. That's what it's called. Alright, I'll be back in 5 minutes, and hopefully I'm gonna be able to either fix something or at least bypass the bug and just continue writing code. See how that goes. I'll be right back.
is absolutely atrocious.
Alright, that probably took a little bit longer than I expected. I had to clean the mutt's ears. But I'm back, and hopefully everything will be okay now. All the bugs manually, manually, magically fixed themselves. That is exactly what happened. Clearly. Yep. I'm sure of it. See? Everything's fixed. This is exactly what it's supposed to look like. This second line here is not supposed to actually show up, so... yeah. It all works. That's great. What's up? Alright. Unfortunately, not everything is working. That's annoying. So, let me say, just keep trying to see if anything works at all. I'm going to try to draw a vertical line now. It didn't even try to draw it. It didn't even attempt to draw the damn thing. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, because there's supposed to be a double line here. Otherwise, I'm just setting the background color inside of it, but I'm not actually drawing any characters. Okay. That works fine. That person assists C++ developer all his projects on GitHub are C#, Java, and Python. Well, I wouldn't expect them to be working on C++ if he hates it so much. Then again, here I am. Python, 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 C++. I mean C#. C#, Python. That makes sense. Again, why would you want to use C++ when you hate it this much? Which again is very correct to think that you hate it this much, because it is actually that bad. I hate this language so much, actually. Although, I have to say, it is not responsible for the fact that half of my characters aren't even rendering. I don't know who is, but it isn't that. Frankly, the terminal could use a little bit of a refactor. And I wouldn't mind doing that off stream during the week. I wish I had remembered or realized how messy the terminal is. I'm itching for a rewrite. I'm itching for a rewrite. No. No. Not. No. 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 I'm going to be good. I'm not going to be rewriting it. Alright, so I would love it if, you know, it did work, at least. Tried a little bit. It's not very beautiful, that's for sure. But it does work. Kind of, because it doesn't really work. That's not even a terminal problem, that's probably a parser problem. Like, this renders fine, this renders fine, this renders not fine, and this renders fine. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand what you're going on about here. Okay. I think I need to fix this issue 100%. Okay, so I'm going to try to isolate it first. The cool thing is, that rendered nothing. Not a single thing did it render. What? Okay. Moving on. I did forget, though, that half of the code in the terminal is actually commented out. And that is kind of an issue. Because again, rendering the cursor is doing something weird. Okay. It rendered 1. It rendered 1 of the lines. Not 30. It rendered 1. And it has nothing to do with the formatter. I understand. I think I understand. Okay, something happens when you do a new line that actually fixes the issue. At the end of this print, there is a new line that we don't see. And that is fixing the previous line, which means when the line gets rendered character by character, it doesn't work. But when the line gets rendered because of a new line, that triggers something that is making it work. Alright, that's interesting. Will it maintain the background color? What was that? The rewrite is calling. The rewrite is begging to happen, but no. I will refactor what I have. I'm not gonna start over. Come on. Okay. Weird bugs part 700. You're kind of undercounting there a little bit, but yeah. Alright, so, not in the terminal, probably in the console. New line. Resets the cursor to X. Sets the cursor, the cursor X to 0. The cursor Y to +1. It scrolls if necessary, and that's not the case. Otherwise, it mem sets the previous line, and it doesn't do anything else besides that. Now, can we get rid of that code? Let's try to isolate this bug. It's actually so funny. You know the best part? is that I thought I fixed it, but no. There's like several weird bugs happening. Alright, so let's start with this one. Okay. This should be 30 lines, instead it's rendering only 1. Okay. That can be fixed. Because that fixes it, yeah. Okay, so console. When I call that, and I put char, I hold the last character that I rendered. I say whether I need to render or not because this is based on this sometimes skips the render, and that's probably that is 100% what is happening with the formatting. No. Well, maybe if there's a bug in it. You're supposed to return false if you didn't render a special character. If you didn't find a special character. If you found a special character that's not renderable, so you return true. Okay, so if we don't have a state, false. If the current state is wrong, false. If we are closing too many brackets, false. Otherwise we return true, and true, meaning I just parse this character, you're not supposed to actually do any parsing. Then, if the character is a semicolon, we're done with the command, we start the argument. If it's a comma, we're done with an argument, we start with the next one. If it's a space, we're done with the command as a whole, including the arguments, and now we move on to everything else. And also, if we are within a current command, but we haven't found one of the terminators here, we just put it in a buffer, we don't do anything with it, and we return true, meaning we parsed, so we're good. Finally, as default, we return false, which will happen if we don't have any of the beginning or ending sequences, as well as if we are within a state. If we're not within a state, that means we're actually rendering an empty character, or a character that has nothing to do with the sequence. So this should be correct, but it seems like it isn't. But if I got rid of this, well, hold on, kind of getting ahead of myself here. Because it has nothing to do with this. So, alright, come back. Again, handling the new line. Something about the new line is causing these to render, whereas this one wasn't. Is it the draw cursor? Is it just a flush? Oh my god, it's literally the flush. Okay, starting to understand. Okay, that's one bug fixed. Although the fix isn't really correct because we're flushing after every character. That won't always be the case. The thing is that this is being called from here, which the console output calls. So that's re-rendering character after character. That isn't necessarily how we want to do it. That is probably not how we want to do it. So I'll need to manually call a console flush when I'm done with this. I am calling a console flush when I'm done with this. And this is plugged to terminal flush, which calls reflush, which flushes. So I am doing what I thought I wasn't doing. Although I'm starting to see a bug here. There's this dcontext, which I'm releasing, but then I'm not using. This dcontext comes from the console, I believe. Ah, okay, it's just... Yeah, it's calling it, but it's never reassigning it. What is this dcontext? Can't I just do that? Yeah, that fixes it. Alright, so I was calling it that on the wrong place. Okay, that's one bug down, 50 to go. Essentially, the flush function was being called, but it was being called weird from the shell, which is where this was coming from, so I guess that makes sense. Anyway, now we're just putting a line of 30 characters, and we are putting a line of 30 characters. Okay, that's good. Now, I want them to have a color. That color is going to be red. Will that work? Yes, that worked. Alright, what if I want the background color to be red? A little render glitch, but yes. That worked surprisingly well. Did I fix all the bugs? Did I fix all the bugs? Did I fix all the bugs? Oh my god, please tell me I fixed all the bugs. That would be so cool. That would actually be so amazing. So very incredible. Oh my god. It is still glitching a little bit here. This should not render like that. This should not render like that, but it's so much smaller than the that I've been dealing with that I'll take it. I'll take it. It's a little bit buggy, so who cares? Who cares? Let it be buggy. It's just fine. That's fine. Oh, I ran a clean. Damn it. Also, hello everybody. This has been genuinely frustrating. It's just been... Alright. If it works, don't touch it. The problem is it wasn't working until recently, but now it works. The first line slightly longer than the end one, probably. Oh fucking no. Um. Oh my god. Why is that happening? Keep in mind I am rendering kind of differently. It's like empty. There's no character being drawn there. It's just a glitch. Probably. I think I understand. It has to do with a new line again, pretty sure. It's the cursor rendering code, most likely. Which again, I need to take a proper look at that one. No, that wasn't it. Well, if it is. I thought putting a new line would move the cursor from here to here, and that would make the bug appear, the little glitch appear here as well, but that's not the case. I'll need to understand this code a little bit better to know what's even going wrong with it. I am not entirely sure what's happening with the terminal, but it needs a little bit of a general cleanup. It could use, definitely, a general cleanup. But yeah, it kind of doesn't help that I didn't even realize that when rendering the cursor, it has these extra functions for rendering, which I wasn't handling before. This and this. Oh no, not this function. Probably the other one, the cursor tick one. This one. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it was this at all. If that's the case, then I should be able to do... Should be able to do this. How are these undeclared? Oh, they're defined here. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, so that's not accurate. Pretty sure there was an off by one thing going on there that I did not respect. Let's see. You get the previous line from the scroll row offset plus the last drawn cursor y divided by the number of rows multiplied by the columns. The character in question is taken from the previous line at last drawn cursor x. That's literally the same thing that I'm doing. And then you're also getting the same way yeah. That should be the same. But also, It's using these kind of weird CWLH values. Where do these come from? They're literally being... That's weird. They're literally the same that I just copied from the other place. And I do see that for rendering the Y, you render it with half the line height in the last cursor plus the times the line height plus half the line height. Okay, so that is correct. Although I do wonder why I need to do that. Yeah, that's still entirely wrong. This code looks pretty much equivalent to the other thing. I just don't understand the code that I'm looking at, to be honest, so that's not really helping me a whole lot. But anyway, render glyph should be doing a draw of... Wait, render glyph goes to the D context. Okay, that's good. Okay, good. I'm not calling that anywhere. Where was I? Here. Alright, you're going to render to the last strong cursor and the character width and the last strong cursor and the line height. Yes. And then you're going to, for some reason, like all of this looks correct, but for some reason it's rendering one character behind now. The character in question was previous line, last strong character, cursor X, last strong cursor X. And now it's previous line, last strong cursor X, where the previous line is again calculated from the row data, scroll row offset, U32 of the last strong cursor Y. Like, this is the same math. Alright. So instead I'm going to go back to how it was. Just do it manually. Just progressively update the code until it looks like it's supposed to look. Yeah, this part works fine. Again, not this, just the typing is drawing the right characters, and it's not one character behind, which was really weird. Okay. Now, the way that I did it before was like this. That's also correct. Okay. And from... I also get these two, which use the exact same offset and everything. to get not just the line, but also the foreground and background color. Right, so I also need to use that here to get the foreground color, and the background color I'm not going to use yet. I'll get to it in a second. I'm literally doing step by step, line by line, because I'm... Okay, I'm starting to see the problem. The previous line of code has no foreground color, so it's rendering it as transparent. That's... very interesting. Okay. Okay, so at least I know what to do about it. I can just copy this code, put it here, and the thing is, I don't use the previous line colors. I just use the current ones for the time being, and I'll debug the rest later. So use the current format, current text color, and current format, current background color. That may even be correct. I just don't fully understand the logic of what's happening here. Okay, it renders everything correctly, so that's fine. That's really all I need you to do right now. And what happens if I move the cursor while I'm typing? It still renders the character correctly. Wait, there is one thing I kind of want to try. That doesn't do anything. Alright, I was wondering if that would work. I should be processing all those characters and doing it, but apparently not. That's fine. Again, least of my problems right now. Genuinely too annoyed to even care. Alright, now, for you, specifically. Why is this rendering like this? Why is this rendering like this? Why is this rendering, these two rendering like this? And the kind of interesting thing about that is this. What happens if I disable this line then? I'm pretty sure that's the one that's causing it, because the two at least partially causing it. No, it still happens. But these two that are not being rendered perfectly match these two that are kind of being rendered in a different way. This needs a cleanup. This 100% needs a cleanup. That's really all I can say about it, is it needs a cleanup. But the best part about it is this. 256 characters of just A for a bell. I wonder if that works. I'm terrified, honestly. That seems to not have worked. But did I get the bell wrong? The bell character should be A, right? I think. If I even remember how my code is structured. Bell, 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 bell. Yeah, A. So that didn't work. Okay, that works. Well. The line height is defined as 2 times the character width. It looks that way, roughly, if you look at the cursor. It perfectly matches with the bottom of this. But this is not twice the character height. It's being cut off by this. But it's being cut off by this because that is so weird. It's being cut off on the top and the bottom sometimes. It just kind of does whatever it wants. But there is one thing I want to look at. For some reason, when you're re-rendering the cursor, you use this half property here. And I don't understand why. And that seems to be what's causing the issue, because it perfectly matches. This is a really fun way of typing, I'm not gonna lie. It feels weird, but I think. Alright, current working theory. Rendering the cursor and rendering the character is happening from different places. From different origins, essentially. I mean, that's gotta be it, right? So, hold on. This is being called from here. Where we use the current cursor and character width, current cursor and line height, plus line height and a half. Oh my god, I didn't notice the offset is already here. That's why I don't need it. That explains the inconsistency. Draw cursor doesn't have it, but it was using this thing here. Next. These other functions were not using this. So that was probably causing the inconsistency. So you always need to add this. Holy shit. It's fixed. Oh my god, it's fixed. It's actually fixed. It's actually working. I can't believe it. Now, cool. That's wonderful. Are we? Is it actually all working now? Holy shit, that's actually perfect. That is actually perfect. Silent contemplation once more. And for good measure,
C++ is absolutely atrocious.
that has nothing to do with it. To be fair. Actually, everything's working, but like, yeah. Did I remove the bell? No. Did I? Oh, no, I didn't. Fucking hell. Why is this not showing now? You know what? This is none of my fucking business. The bell isn't even supposed to print anything in the first place. I don't code in C++ for the most part, but I made the unfortunate mistake in my youth a year ago. So I'm kind of stuck with a few places where I have C++, but most of it is C. You can really tell the difference. By the way, it says that failed to navigate to the program, but it doesn't actually say anything about not being able to find it. But yeah, anyway, I'm just gonna ignore that the bell didn't work. Alright, and everything works. Alright? Everything works. Trust me. The main language I use is C. It works. You believe that? I find it hard to believe. I am genuinely struggling to believe this. C is a lot better than C++, 100%. Because C++ claims to add a bunch of cool features to C. It doesn't really know how to do that. So, yeah. Again, there is an entire 2-hour video about this, which has been coming in clutch today. But thank you so much for your help. All right. Okay. I do have to ask myself then if I can do this thing. I don't really need any of this actually, so. Alright, just put a wipe in it. Yeah, C++ is mostly nonsense to be completely honest. And earlier today we saw some syntax that was just horrifying. All right, so we're gonna put the cursor at, say, 10, 10. And here, we're going to go for 5 characters. And now we're actually going to print just the space, but we're going to put it in a little formatted background color. This background color, that's the one you're going to use. You're going to use a space to indicate we're done with the command. You're going to put a semicolon and you're going to end the command there. That's probably going to draw a bunch more running Doom. Should be able to run Doom. I haven't tried it in a while, but it should be there. Maybe it needs recompilation. Yeah, no, this definitely will not work. But you know what I can do? No, this is supposed to be 10 I, which is 10 plus I. So put that. Then do the same thing on 20 I, and that's going to do it for 5 characters. So at the end of it, we're going to be on the cursor being on line 15. So we will put the cursor on 18. And for 20 characters... nesting doesn't work. I forgot nesting doesn't work. Every single one of these is going to have this. And we put the thing there, put the cursor there, and then genuinely just render a bunch of empty spaces. I just realized this isn't going to look like what I expect it to look, but what is your problem? Oh, I forgot to close this. I was going for a smiley face and then I completely forgot that I'm not making it smiley, so it's just gonna be a completely neutral face. And also, those sizes are wrong. Oh, wait, no, I made it twice as big as I needed to. Oh, that's the reason. But holy fuck, it works. Let me get it right. Pretty sure that's still kind of wrong somewhere. But it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Might as well just on 9 17 without arguments, and on 21:17 with no arguments. That should make it a bit more smiley. Yeah, kind of. Is that smiley enough? What a pain in the ass this has been. Goddamn. But also, quick little thing. The offsets are still not entirely right. I feel like something's weird about the way that the smile aligns with the rest of the eyes. It is essentially making this thing and this thing and this one and this one a little bit bigger than it needs to. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if that was because of the part that I said I was going to refactor later, which is the cursor moving from being here to somewhere else. Let's see if that's the case. In the draw cursor function, instead of using these, you're going to use the, well, hold on. Yeah, no. Get rid of that. Just use the current format, default text color, and current format, default background color. And let's see how that goes. That probably is the issue. Yeah. It got it a little bit wrong there on the last line, because I'm not really re-rendering it after doing it with this kind of flawed function. But that is the issue. Alright, so that solves my my question. Essentially because when I take a look at what exactly is happening here with the cursor, and I fix it, then this issue is going to go away by itself. Because again, I don't really understand where I'm supposed to get that data from. Although, yeah. It's a little bit off there, but I don't understand why. So yeah, I'll need to properly understand what this code is doing and how to fix it properly. But it renders a mostly okay smiley face. And most importantly, the part that no matter how difficult this is, keeps me going. This is what the format looks like. It is so readable. It is actually readable. Do I still have the Microsoft thing open? I don't. Oh yes, I do. This shit is not readable. This is ancient texts. This shit is not readable. What the hell is that? I hadn't even noticed this one. Alright, so we can compare, wait, what does it even say? This text attempts to apply many colors to the same command. Note the colors are applied from left to right, so only the rightmost option of foreground is effective. Oh well. Sucks to be you, I guess. Now, I'm good with this, the way that it is right now. Again, very readable, very simple to work with. Actually, I would even call it somewhat intuitive. I don't know, I wrote the damn thing, so it's hard for me to tell you whether this is intuitive or not. Although, for example, I can tell you that you set color and you set BG. Not super clear. Although I could also make it so that you set... I can do that, actually. You can use color, or you can use foreground, and you can use background, BG, or you can use background. I guess if you want to be more explicit or less explicit about it, that makes it a little bit clearer. And likewise, cost me nothing to add that except for a little bit of compute, but very, very little, so it's fine. Alright. Ended up fixing the bugs that genuinely made me consider moving to a cabin in the woods and never touching a computer again. Even though I know if I did that, I would just end up coding in paper. At some point or another, something would happen. Or, I don't know. I would start making the light bulbs flash in zeros and ones, or something like that. Yeah, I don't think I can move away from programming. I'm too used to doing it. Alright. That is more than enough for now. That is way too much. But I can mostly render these characters. Again, I need to kind of figure out how new lines and moving the cursor works. I'll need to figure that out. Sit down and actually understand it, and I don't feel like doing that right now. I feel like taking a break, so I'm gonna do that. But finally, I have the ability of rendering to a specific cell with a specific color, a specific character of its own specific color. So I have everything I need in order to do a TUIs. Again, I would love to be able to plug my entire UI library into this thing. That would be so convenient, because I can just use it to do things. And honestly, it only renders things in two ways. It renders text and it renders rectangles. Would that be too difficult to then port its backend to using a TUI backend? Probably not. But I do not want to mess with that right now. What can I say? It's going to need a little bit of math about it, because it's essentially the same math that I do to calculate sizes when it comes to pixels, but the difference is that now you do it in cells. But what is a cell if not a weirdly sized pixel, where the height is twice as much as the width? That's really it. So that really isn't that difficult to handle. The little bit of extra math that's needed is that text, by definition in a TUI, takes up one cell, whereas... So you don't need to apply the same scaling that you would apply to a rectangle. So text is considered to be a special case in this rendering backend, but again, I do not care in the slightest about how to handle this right now. So I'm just saying, maybe in the future I will want to do that, because it would be cool to be able to do TUIs with the same libraries that I do UI. It would be really cool to be able to render UI in these libraries with just a little bit of extra math. So I guess I'll try. eventually, when I feel a little crazy, when I feel a little yeah, when I feel like suffering, I may try that. But hoping that maybe today I have both the will and the time to take a look at what's happening with the cursor drawing, I think I'll have a fully functional and fully bug-free, hard as it is to believe, implementation of a TUI. Again, of course, I do have to ask myself, if I just do this, that fixes everything, right? Yep, that fixes everything. Alright, so this is what I expect to have. So really all I need to do is fix this one function. That's it, that's it. I just need to figure out this logic one time, fix this function, that's it. It's gonna be simple, it's gonna be easy. Trust. Alright, but I'm gonna do that off stream because I am too tired right now and I need to take a break and I need to do something else. And I need to touch grass. And earlier I touched a houseplant, but that's not the same thing. So maybe touching grass would be good for everything except my allergies. Alright, so the thing is I don't really have much of a TUI to build yet. I don't really need that for the time being. So maybe it might actually be time to move on from this? I'm a little reluctant to say that because, well, it does feel weird, but it might be time to move on from this. Now, before I end the stream, I am going to try one more thing. Let's see. You were not supposed to render. So none of this is supposed to happen. Okay, so you set the data, you serialize it, you send it. You're then supposed to sleep for 3 seconds. Hey, 3 seconds, not 30. Then you're supposed to modify the data and send it again. Okay. Okay, so this is working. Holy shit, this is working. This is actually working. Okay. So this is the main reason I wanted to do this. I wanted the terminal to be able to render this kind of like structured data. So it's actually rendering this thing by sending binary data, just raw data, to the terminal and telling it how to render it. And now I can do that. So again, I can do terminal UIs. Eventually, I'll want to come back and make it handle them properly. Like maybe with a UI library or something like that. But maybe instead of working more on the terminal tomorrow, I might go back to working on something else. I'll have to consider what, so I'm not going to say anything right now. But yeah, maybe tomorrow I'm going to start on something new. Has God spoken to you about the operating system? Whispered, not spoken. I am writing an OS, yes. Alright. Oh, another thing I definitely need to look into is signals, because they don't work right now. Oh, maybe I can look into scripting for the terminal, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. Again, I'm gonna consider what to do. I guess we'll see. Well, yeah, I have a couple things to fix when I have a little bit of time and a little bit of mental capacity for that. For now, I'm done streaming. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much. And yeah, stay tuned for what will come next.